Here's a question worth answering honestly before we go any further. How old were you when you stopped expecting an adult to handle it? Not when you were told to grow up. When you quietly worked out that waiting for someone else to manage it was not a plan. Most descriptions of this placement start at cold and stop there. Ambitious, guarded, allergic to fuss, difficult to comfort. All observable, all accurate, and all of it describing the roof rather than the thing holding the roof up. The moon, before the sign it sits in, is the part that handles load. Not what you want, what it takes to keep functioning after something has landed on you. Everyone's is calibrated differently, and almost nobody has read their own settings. In Capricorn, the requirement is that the structure holds. Not comfort, not company, not reassurance. Structure, that what you are standing on will still be there tomorrow, and the quiet certainty that if it is not, you will be the one who rebuilds it. Picture a foundation poured before anyone asked what was going to be built on it. It is level, it is deep. It will carry very nearly anything you put on it. It was also set extremely early, by a child who did not have the drawings yet and poured it anyway. And that is the part the descriptions keep missing. Competence arrived here far too early, and it did not arrive alone. It arrived instead of something. Chapter 3 gives that missing thing its name, and almost everything after it depends on knowing what it was. Capricorn is cardinal Earth. Earth is material and slow. Cardinal begins things. Together they make something that does not merely endure, but starts building, on purpose, from nothing, without being asked, and usually without being thanked. So the method is a negotiation, and it runs constantly. Every feeling that arrives gets weighed against what is already owed, to the work, to the family, to the standard. The feeling is not denied, it is simply placed second, again, and the second place is permanent, which produces one of the most recognizable habits in the zodiac. Asked what it wants, this placement will genuinely struggle. Asked what it can handle, the answer arrives instantly and is usually an overestimate. And here is the part almost nobody understands from outside. For this placement, doing something competently is not avoidance of feeling. It is how the feeling gets processed. The hands work, the system settles. Take the task away, and you have taken away the regulator. Underneath it, there is a contract, and it was signed young. Roughly, I will not be a burden, I will handle my own weather, and in exchange, I will be left alone to get on with it. Nobody countersigned. It has been honored for decades anyway. None of this is a defect. Worth stating clearly before the next chapter turns darker. This is the placement other people build their lives on top of. It keeps its word when keeping it is expensive. In a genuine crisis, it is the calmest instrument in the room. Here is what the competence was standing in for: being looked after. Somewhere early, being capable turned out to work better than needing anything, and the trade was taken. It was a reasonable trade at the time. It was also never revisited. So this placement ends up permanently on the wrong side of the exchange. Everyone relies on it, almost nobody holds it. And it will not point this out, because pointing it out would mean admitting the arrangement was ever a cost. Watch what happens when help is offered. It gets declined before it has finished being offered, reflexively, politely, sometimes with a joke. Receiving is not modesty here, and it is not pride. It is a skill that was never installed. There is also a sentence that runs for years without being examined. After this project, after this year, when things settle. The rest of a life keeps getting scheduled for a date that moves every time it is approached. And a harder edge, which is worth naming without excusing. Impatience with people who fall apart. A quiet contempt for anyone who asks for what this placement was never allowed to ask for. That contempt is not really aimed outward, and it is corrosive wherever it lands. What fixes this is small and genuinely difficult. Ask someone for something you do not need. A lift, an opinion, 10 minutes, something you could obviously do yourself, asked for anyway, so the machinery of receiving gets used before it is actually required. In closeness, this placement provides, and it provides seriously. Stability, follow-through, a person who is where they said they would be. What it does not do is lean. It will carry the relationship for years and never once put its weight on it. Under conflict, the register changes rather than the volume. It goes formal. The tone cools, the sentences get shorter and more exact, and suddenly you are not arguing with a partner at all. You are receiving a summary from a competent stranger who happens to live in your house. Repair has an unusual shape here. It does not need an apology, and it does not want a conversation about feelings. What works is somebody simply still being there afterwards, unbothered, next to it. Proof outlasts explanation with this placement every time. The moon in Cancer sits directly opposite, and the comparison is instructive. That one asks by giving and then waits to be guessed. This one refuses to ask at all and files the refusal under independence. Both are avoiding the identical sentence, only the accent differs. A partner helps here in a way almost nobody thinks to try. Notice the load without remarking on it, then take a piece of it without asking. Asking permission guarantees a polite no. Simply taking it is received silently as love. And there is a trap on the other side. A placement this capable will quietly select partners who need carrying, because being needed is the closest available translation of being wanted. That arrangement holds for a long time, and then stops holding all at once. At work, this is the placement that finishes. Not the fastest starter and rarely the loudest in the room, but the one still on the thing in month 9 when the interest has gone and only the obligation is left. Organizations run on people like this and seldom notice. There is a precise way authority goes wrong here. Harshness is survivable. This placement will work for a difficult person indefinitely. What it cannot do is take direction from someone it has watched be incompetent. Respect is not optional here. It is the fuel line. When that respect goes, nothing dramatic happens. The work stays excellent, the hours stay long, and somewhere inside the position has already been vacated, usually 8 or 9 months before anybody is told, and the notice is a formality by then. One refusal here is absolute, credit that has not been exactly earned. Offered a title it has not yet grown into, this placement will decline it, or, worse for its career, correct the record out loud in front of people. That is integrity, and it is also, repeatedly, expensive. The cost sits somewhere else. Output and identity fuse here, early and almost completely. A bad quarter is not a bad quarter, it is evidence about the person. This is why rest is difficult, and why holidays are, quietly, a little frightening. The version that has grown up can do one thing, and it changes everything. Finish something and walk away from it while it is still standing. Not keep adjusting. Not stay in case. Built, released, gone. Discipline and captivity look identical from outside, and that is what separates them. The work is not working less. Lecture this placement into slowing down, and what comes back is resentful and slightly diminished, which helps nobody. The work is the contract itself, the one signed at 9 by someone who did not have the authority to sign anything. Renegotiating it is not a ceremony. It is one clause at a time in ordinary situations. Letting somebody else book the restaurant. Saying the project slipped because you were tired. Small, unheroic admissions that the load was, in fact, a load. The second piece is treating receiving as a skill rather than a weakness, something clumsy at first and improvable with practice, like any other. Nobody with this placement is bad at receiving because they are proud. They are bad at it because they have had no reps. At its best, this placement supplies what no family and no institution can manufacture. Somebody whose word is load-bearing. Not warm, exactly. Reliable in a way that outlasts warmth, and rarer than it, and worth a great deal more on the day something actually goes wrong. The moon is slowing the Earth down. Every century, the day gets a couple of milliseconds longer because the tides drag against a turning planet. Nothing announces it. No one alive will feel it. It is happening continuously, and it is not going to stop. And of the 12 signs, Capricorn takes up the least room in the sky. The constellation is the smallest of them, easy to miss, drawn faintly, holding its position between much showier neighbors for as long as anyone has been looking up. Size was never what it was doing.